Alright everybody, it's practice time. Let's say for a moment that you are working on an application or a website that a writer, a content editor, copywriter, blog writer, anything, any sort of writer can use to publish content in the form of a blog post or a dedicated website or even an email, a formatted HTML email. Well, these are most likely going to be individuals who don't know how to code and don't use code on a regular basis. And it's not really the job of developers on staff to take the content that these people produce and turn it into a website or turn it into an HTML email. More importantly, it's the job of the developers on staff to create the tools for these individuals to publish the content and have that published content be formatted in a predictable way. It needs to look consistent with the rest of the online content for a given business. It needs to look like it belongs. It needs to look aesthetically pleasing and well designed and in keeping with the rest of the company's branding. So at a very simple level, let's say that this is our content writer facing application. It's nothing but a text area and a button. And theoretically, the content writer would paste or would type up their content, type up their blog post, their article, whatever it is, here in this text area, click the button, and it would publish as a website, formatted and looking nice and everything. So here in my HTML, you can see all I have is a text area and a button inside of a div. That button has an onClick attribute, which invokes a publish function when it is clicked. So I've got a lot of dummy text here in my JavaScript, a couple paragraphs of dummy text that I'm just going to copy and paste into this text area so we have it there. And now we need to figure out what this publish function needs to do. Well, let's take the content of that text area and let's store that in a variable for now. So article is going to be a long string containing all of the content that an individual has typed into the text area. Then we just need to figure out how we want to publish it down below. It might be on a different page in a real-world scenario, but for the sake of this demo, it's going to be down below. So let's start by just inserting it into a paragraph element down below. See what happens. And I'm going to do this using inner HTML here. And some concatenation just to change things up. And because personally I am more fond of inner HTML as a means of creating HTML on the fly rather than document.createElement or create text node and all that jazz. Okay, so let's see what happens. Reload my page, paste my text, click the button. And there we go. We've got a big old text wall down below. Well, that's great, but we're not seeing my line breaks. We're not seeing the line breaks at all. There's a couple ways you can handle line breaks. Some of them are CSS methods, but I want to keep this in JavaScript for now. I want to practice in JavaScript. This didn't quite work. This didn't quite work. So let's see if we can break up this article variable a little bit. And let's first try this in the console. So article is nothing but a long string. Let's try and split that string wherever there is a line break. There we go. Okay, that \n is, it signifies a line break in JavaScript. JavaScript will recognize this as a line break within a string. For example, when someone hits enter between paragraphs to break to a new line. So I've now split article wherever we see a line break, which means we now have 5 strings inside of an array. And each of these strings represents a paragraph. So now that we've split it effectively, how can we put it back together in a more meaningful way? Well, how about we try rejoining each of these strings with a closing paragraph tag, followed by a horizontal rule, followed by an opening paragraph tag. Well, as a string, this is what it looks like, and it's not terribly useful to us, but let's see what happens when I plug this into the inner HTML, which I am adding to my body. Reload my page, paste my text, click the button. Now look at that. We've taken the text wall that was in our text area, found every line break, and replaced it with 3 HTML tags. If you're finding it difficult to visualize exactly what's going on in these gaps, well, let me draw it out for you. So what I added to my body was a paragraph tag. We have the opening paragraph tag, closing paragraph tag. Okay? And sandwiched between these two tags is the content of our variable article. But what I did was I broke article up into separate paragraphs. Let's say 3 paragraphs. And in between each of these paragraphs, what I added when I rejoined them was a closing paragraph tag, a horizontal rule, and an opening paragraph tag. So this is what we get. In this example we see here, there's one full paragraph element, one full paragraph element, one full paragraph element, each with a horizontal rule between them. Okay? So it's important to be able to visualize that. This final closing paragraph tag and this very first opening paragraph tag are written explicitly in the inner HTML, which is being added to my body element. Everything else is added in between. I took advantage of the fact that we're starting with an opening and closing paragraph tag, and I figured out how or what to concatenate in between each of these strings in order to make some meaningful HTML markup. Okay, so hopefully that should help you to visualize how we ended up here. But now that we have ended up here, we can, of course, take the opportunity to style each of these paragraphs with much greater precision. Oh, but I forgot my text. Reload, paste, click. Now we have a little more spacing. Maybe I just want that padding to the left and right. And maybe I want the first letter of each paragraph to be bold. And maybe I want it to be, that's too big, a little bigger. Okay, but you get the idea. We now have the separation. We've resulted in an HTML markup which we can take much tighter control of. And obviously, you can insert anything that you'd like into this concatenated string, which we're rejoining every item in what becomes the array with. So if I wanted to give each of the paragraphs in this resulting article their own class, well, I could by simply inserting it here. Something like that. And maybe I would also want to add that class name to the very first paragraph tag. Okay, so just to drive this point home, let me open up my console, not my console, my inspector, open up the Elements tab, and actually take a look at the markup that was added. Paragraph, horizontal rule, paragraph, horizontal rule, paragraph, horizontal rule. Okay, so we went from a nondescript wall of text inside a single unstyled paragraph element to 5 paragraph elements, 4 horizontal rules, each with their own styles. And we now have the opportunity, if we wanted to insert an image element in between the second and third paragraph, that would be very easy to do. Okay, so we took a string, a very large string. We broke it up wherever we found a line break. We split it everywhere we found a line break, and we rejoined it with some meaningful HTML markup. And the resulting string we inserted into the inner HTML of my body element. We added it to the inner HTML of my body element. Okay, this is just one simple example of how string methods or array methods used with string methods can be very useful in creating tools for non-developers to create and maintain content. And that is where the true value of being a front-end developer is. It's not in building static websites. It's in building internal tools which individuals and companies can use to create and manage content without having